Hello and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Coffee Break podcast. Today we want to talk about personalization. Now that's a broad field and we want to find out why personalization is not an all or nothing exercise. We want to find out what that is in fact meaning for a Shopify merchant. With me on the show, I have Mark Dodgson. He is the Chief Experience Officer and co-founder of relevantbits.com. With more than 2 decades of experience, Mark has led a number of design teams and has instructed in the classroom of his alma mater. In his role of user experience lead, he had experience of collaborating closely with clients and their customers on a diverse range of projects, from comprehensive redesigns to feature-focused enhancements. So let's welcome him to the show. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Klaus.
Mark, personalization, a lot of people just think about is showing the right product in the right moment. And that's basically it. But it is far more. Give me your take on what personalization is for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a wide range there. And I think, the purpose of personalization is to increase the relevance of your value proposition by speaking your customer's language, matching their expectations, and addressing, their fears, needs, and desires. And if you can do that, it's more than likely going to translate to a number of factors. The obvious ones are improved conversions and units per transaction, average order value. But you also have improvements and increases in customer loyalty and in recommendations. But there is a wide range in terms of personalization, from the mass marketing approach to the hyper personalization one-to-one approach on the other end. So there is that expansive range, but most companies lie somewhere in between those two ends.
Mm-hmm. Now, for a lot of people out there, personalization stands for I put the name of my customer in the email. End of story. So let's dive in some examples, actually, what you can really do and how you can really go deep into personalization.
Yeah, and I think it comes down having customer segments and having rule types makes that possible. And so you can kind of get creative with how you do that. Of course, putting the customer's name in an email is a very simple approach and probably one people should do to get started. But there's also great simple ones, just changing out your banner. So instead of, showing a carousel, show a very specific banner to your customer segment, because, there's a lot of data that shows that with carousels, most people don't get to the second or third one. So if you can even think about just swapping out the banner based on a set of rules or a customer segment type, that would be much more effective. So there's lots of approaches like that. If you have customers who have purchased from you before, what we have the data to support what they've purchased. So show a collection that is in line with what they've purchased in the past. And then you can get even more creative with different rule types, related to their location or weather or date ranges or promotions, right? So you can kind of expand on that. I think, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Klaus.
So obviously in the first place, you have to collect that data. Where do you start there? What kind of sources do you use to collect data to build up this profile that you then can use for personalization with your customer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think there's two real types, right? I mean, there's implicit data and there's explicit data. And, there's data that you're going to have in your Shopify store that can be used. And Shopify, for example, gives you a great way to filter that using operators and values and create customer segments out of it. Klaviyo is another example too. So Klaviyo can also let you create those customer segments in really powerful ways. And then on the other end, there's the implicit data, which is like things like date ranges and location data and weather data. And I think in combination with your explicit data or the first party data that you have in your store, you can make some pretty interesting opportunities for yourself to personalize for your customers.
Mm-hmm. Now, you worked with some very big companies. They have a huge budget. They do a lot of customization. What's their entry point? Where do they start when it comes to personalization?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think the challenge with many of the projects that we worked on is that they have been large scale. So the organizations that we worked have been rather large, and so from their point of view, we're working with larger teams. And I think that's part of the challenge with small to medium or size organizations is the teams that we've worked with in the past are, 30 plus teams on a personalization strategy. You've got data analysts and engineers, and you've got data scientists, and, you've got the whole gamut of people working on this. And, I think it's very easy for small to medium-sized organizations to feel like they have to be all in or not at all. And that's because there's a lot of online articles, videos on YouTube. There's podcast guests from large organizations that are doing really important personalization work, but they often speak from the point of view of a large team that's, strategizing, developing, implementing, and, these very sophisticated plans. And I think, I've done a number of interviews with smaller teams, and there's often some trepidation that leads to feeling like it's not worth going down this path if you don't have the team to support it. And I truly think that this stems from this view that you have to do it all. And I personally don't think that's true at all. I think there's lots of ways you can just kind of get started in this personalization path.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think you don't need to really start with the 300-pound gorilla and like every feature that is out there, and starting small. You gave some examples. You said Klaviyo, gave Shopify, segmentation. Obviously, it's a big thing in there. For a small and medium enterprise, what kind of resources do I need to invest, and what kind of solutions do I need to look for to get started with personalization?
Yeah, I think it depends on your needs. So, there's tooling just to swap section content based on different sets of customer segments or rules. I think you want to make sure that that you have the data to support all of the things that you want to do. So if you running your Black Friday and Cyber Monday promotions, in November, you might want to start thinking about like what questions you can ask in maybe a form to help improve your data. You might want to think about things like what collections should be displayed, how can we update the messaging to make it more effective, and target your customers a little bit better, and how can you maintain that journey all the way through the store. And I think we've been doing a lot of stuff with the Shopify ecosystem, but of course everything kind of plays into it: your email marketing, your SMS, your store personalization. And I think if you can make all of those work together in a really unified way, then it becomes a really nice story for your customers, and makes it better to makes it easier for you to sell products that are meaningful to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How much of that can be completely automized? I think you gave me this example of rain gear that's only be shown when the weather forecast is bad. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities to like get creative with how you're using the data. And it could be things like displaying your wet rain gear for your running gear. So I'm a runner. So there, if you're thinking about the weather in Canada here, right now it's pouring out. So if you wanted to use weather in an interesting way, you could be doing some predictive stuff with rules. So if it's going to rain within the next 7 days, show a collection of products that is wet wear gear. So there's lots of interesting ways to use that information. But it could also be things like setting up promotions that trigger just based on a date and a location. That's a very simple approach, right? It could be featuring a new collection to customers who have shopped with you before and who live in Toronto, right? So it's combining different customer segments and rules together. You might, another big one is, digital ads, right? So if you want to start making sure that everything's working together, using swapping content, and it could be banners and collections based on the ad that they land on your store from. So using UTM parameters. So it's really just about getting creative with it. And I think the challenge right now is that, over the past year, I've been interviewing agencies, marketers, and merchants. And what's been super interesting is that while personalization matters, they're usually teams of 1 to 5. So there's a lot more small to medium-sized organizations than there are large organizations. And so they often struggle for what we've found is 5 key things. One is like limited resources. They just don't have the staff to execute personalization strategies. There's technical limitations. So there's, not really simple tooling to make it happen, or they don't have developers to implement, a personalization campaign. Another one is really around the data challenges or data silos. So, how can you get that your own first party data or get your data together so that it can be used efficiently? There's usually a cost to implement and operate it, and I think that scares people off, and so it can be a little bit challenging there. And I think the last one is really like lack of expertise. Believe it or not, there's a lot of small to medium-sized organizations that really don't understand personalization or don't even know of it at all, which is also a little bit surprising.
That's definitely surprising there. I believe you came up with a solution specifically for small and medium enterprises to help with that. And I think all the parts that you just addressed are a crucial part in their business. So they're lacking the expertise, for instance, to do that. Give me some examples on how you help with that, and what a kind of learning curve does a merchant need to go through to get it up and running?
Yeah, so we've built a product called Context, and it was really aimed to solve those 5 key areas that merchants were struggling with in terms of personalization. And Context it's a very simple personalization tool, and it's targeted to agencies, marketers, and merchants. And I would say merchants that know they need personalization. And it's based on interviews. We decided to focus on a very specific part of the personalization, and because we felt there was a hole in the market. So it's evolving as we go right now, but we focused on swapping section content in real time based on a rules engine that we built. And so we have this concept of a recipe, and each recipe is essentially a customer segment or a set of rules that display content to your visitors. And so each recipe then is made up of 3 ingredients. One is content variations, so the individual pieces of content that go in each section. We have a rules engine that triggers those content variations to display. And then, of course, there's the metrics that provide insights really into how well a recipe is performing or not performing. And I think the rules engine is probably the most powerful piece of it. We have 5 rules that can be applied right now. One is customer segments, and Shopify is right out of the box, and we have an integration for Klaviyo. But that allows you to use your first party data to swap content throughout your site. And an example of that would be like, show a specific banner or a collection to visitors on your email subscription list, or, if they've purchased in the last 30 days. We also have the geolocation, so you can swap content based on the location of your customers. We have the UTM parameters rule type, which lets you personalize the entire customer experience on your store based on the UTM parameter that they landed on your store from. So we actually store it for the entire session, so you can personalize many, not just the landing page, but many pages through that journey. There's a date range rule type, which is allowing you to swap banners, much like promotions. So on this day, if you're from this location in this day in time. And then, of course, we have the weather one, which we brought up a little earlier there. So all of those rule types can be used individually, or they can also all be combined. So you can get really creative with in terms of how you want to personalize your site.
I think that brings the power of the big platforms like Amazon doing personalization very good for a long time, but I mean, they have hundreds and thousands of people working on that, really down to for a small merchant, for a small enterprise, using the same power of personalization there. Now, coming back to how much time do I need to invest from my side as a merchant to get it up and running?
Yeah, from a merchant standpoint, you can be up and running in under 5 minutes. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Is it's a no-code solution. So once you install it, Context it automatically scans the sections of each of your templates and presents them in our UI. And then you can start. There's a variation editor, so you can create new versions of your banners. So if you have a banner on your homepage and you want to create new variations, you create variation, and it duplicates your themes banner and lets you edit that and modify it, and then that becomes your new variation that can be used. That can be swapped out based on the rules that are applied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I reckon it only works on OS 2.0.
It does.
What kind of other requirements do I need to have?
Yeah, right now that's it. So it's OS 2.0. So it has, because it's using sections to swap out. We currently we just launched, so it works on all of the free Shopify themes, and we're actively rolling out support for all of the the major theme creators. So there's lots of theme support that's going to be happening over the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Are there any specific industries, niches that where that would work very well, or are there any where it would not work? Give me some examples.
Yeah, I don't know that that there's any examples of where it would or wouldn't work well. I mean, right now what we're finding is that it's with agencies are interested in the product for a couple of reasons. One is they're finding new ways to create content, all year round, as opposed to, creating content once and loading on the site and then making changes a couple months later, that type of thing. They're now creating multiple content for multiple customer segments and then changing it consistently throughout the year, which is pretty interesting. We've also had lots of interest from the ad tech community, because usually with the ad tech community, and you have a digital ad and you land on a landing page, the experience kind of ends there. But we can further that experience by storing that UTM parameter in the session and letting you personalize a lot more. So yeah, I think it's interesting where it's going. I think what we're trying to do is make sure that it works really well for marketers and agencies, and merchants can still benefit from all of the same tooling, because it's a very simple platform. We've spent a lot of time on the experience of the tool. It's really as simple as creating the content you want to swap out, selecting it, applying some rules, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any kind of reporting tools that I can find out what works best?
Yeah, so in terms of the metrics,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we have metrics in the application. So it's at two levels. So there's metrics at the recipe level. So you can see things like the number of sessions, the impressions, the percentage of engagement, units per transaction, average order value, conversion rate at each individual recipe. And then inside the recipe, you'll get more metrics at the section level. So things like your collections and banners and multi-rows, you'll get data about the number of impressions. So was it actually seen by the visitor? And then which ones actually had engagement?
Mm-hmm. No, makes perfect sense. What's the onboarding process? How can I get started?
Yeah, so it's as simple as just going to our app on the Shopify App Store, downloading it, installing it, and then start creating content. It's a very, very simple process, and we have a little tour that you can take that kind of walks you through the application, but it's very simple.
Okay. How about the pricing? How's the pricing structure?
Yeah, pricing starts at there is a free plan to try it out and test it out, and then pricing starts at $29 for 1,000 sessions a month, and it goes up to 100,000 sessions a month right now, because we don't have any enterprise level plans at the moment, at $299 a month at the highest level.
No, that's very affordable. Cool. Before the coffee breaks comes to an end today, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
Well, I think, it's very easy to get overwhelmed and to not do anything. You might get into this analysis paralysis state of mind. I think making small but consistent steps can, really have a tremendous effect on your business, both in terms of the learnings, but also in terms of your store's bottom line. So I think it's important to, segment your customers, deliver meaningful products and messaging to each customer segment, and measure the overall effect that it has, and then adjust as needed. But get a simple tool in place that can help you to achieve that, and start small.
Yeah, I agree. Personalization always wins. Even if it's small, it will definitely be better than anyone out there who has no personalization at all. Mark, where can people find out more about you guys?
Yeah, so you can visit our site, which is context.relevantbits.com. And if you're interested in a demo, it's context.relevantbits.com/demo.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes as always, and you're just one click away. Mark, thanks so much to give us an idea of how you can put personalization in place. Very straightforward and very easy. And I would suggest to our listeners to check it out. I think it's a good solution to get started. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Klaus.
Hey, Klaus here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Before we wrap things up, I've got a couple of important points to share. Firstly, if you have enjoyed today's episode and want to support the show, here's a simple way to do it. Help me out with that algorithm magic by liking, commenting, and subscribing on your favorite podcast app. And if you're feeling extra generous, leaving a rating would be great. Your support helps me bringing more impactful guests on the show, and it makes it easier for others to discover the podcast. Secondly, I want to talk about to all your business owners out there. Here's a question. Are you tired of juggling everything in your business while struggling with your marketing tasks? Fed up with hit and miss experiences of hiring freelancers or agencies that don't quite get your vision? But perhaps you're not ready to commit to a full-time in-house marketer just yet. Well, I've got a solution for you. Introducing our fractional marketing team. My team and I provide top-notch experienced marketing professionals to become an extension of your business. Not only will they save you up to 50% on cost compared to traditional hires, but they also take care of all this time-consuming, repetitive and complex marketing tasks that have been holding you back. And this way, you can concentrate on what truly matters, the core of your business. To learn more about how we can help you to scale up your online sales with a fractional team member, head over to our website, smart-ecommerce-marketing.com, or reach out to me directly and I'll get you the details. You will find the links in the show notes. Thanks for being a part of our podcast community, and remember, your support means the world to me. Until next time, see you then.